someone's happy.
Death Stranding is a beautiful video game. The world combined with the soundtrack makes for a serene and stressful game about delivering packages in a dystopian wasteland. The game is chock full of different types of plot points and game mechanics, but there is one thing that stands out in Death Stranding among everything else. Death Stranding has a piss mechanic. Hello there, friends and enemies, my name is O'Shea, and when it was revealed that you would be able to pee in Death Stranding, it sold me on a game that I had already been sold for about 3 or 4 years at the point in time. Upon receiving my game back in 2019 and opening it up and peeing for the first time, my first thought was, this is just like Fable's fart mechanic. And having thought that, it leads me to the question, are these mechanics important? Immersion in gameplay is a widely discussed topic, and like a lot of widely discussed topics, it has become an overblown, bloated Flanderization of itself. ARM.com defines immersive games in a widely accepted definition of video games that transport the player into an alternative world where techniques are used to make them feel more like the character they're playing, achieved through a combination of good game flow, fully developed storylines, and extreme realism made possible by cutting-edge graphics. Now, I don't have an issue with a game world and characters feeling like they belong in the game world. That is to say, I don't have an issue with games feeling like everything makes sense and feels good. However, especially in recent history, the topic of immersive gameplay is used to tack onto anything that a person may want to pick out that they don't like about a game in order to say that a game is bad. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. In my experience, the argument of immersive gameplay has to do with two things: what a game does not have and what a game has. And before you ask yourself if this guy on the internet that has awful opinions is qualified to talk about this subject, let me regale you with this. In 2004, a child-aged me remarked aloud about the 2004 Spider-Man 2 video game for Xbox that the web-slinging felt good. I would say this several times over the coming years until most recently when I played Final Fantasy XVI and commented that the world and combat of Final Fantasy XVI felt really good. That being said, with my understanding of immersive gameplay, I think that makes me overqualified to talk about the subject, actually. As game mechanics have evolved, we have decided as a society that games should become a little more realistic. However, in being video games, there's only so much realism that you can really put in. But as with anything that is created, it's never enough for some people. In God of War Ragnarok, you cannot chop the trees down with your axe. In Death Stranding, you can pee. Mechanically speaking, peeing has a function. If you pee outside, you make a mushroom. Over time, the more times that people pee in that spot, that will become a cryptobiote hive, and cryptobiotes heal your health little by little. In combat, you can use your pee and your poop as weapons against enemies. In this way, Death Stranding has taken a silly concept like the act of peeing and turned it into a functional game mechanic. However, if there weren't peeing in Death Stranding, actually, let me one-up myself. If there was no piss mechanic in Death Stranding 2, I wouldn't be that upset. I wouldn't be sitting there going, why don't I pee in this game? There are plenty of games that you play where the actual body functions that a human needs to do to survive are never brought up. You never have to eat or sleep in Skyrim. You don't even get the chance of a pee mechanic in Skyrim. That game was beloved by the world. People still play that game. People that don't play the other Elder Scrolls game tell me that that's the best Elder Scrolls game. In fact, in most video games, you don't have to sleep or eat ever. We could put these actions on par with chopping the trees in God of War. Breakable environments are cool, yeah, but they're not really necessary. And to use the argument of breaking my immersion as to why this missing from the game makes it a bad game becomes a bad argument. You could argue that these gripes come with the idea that environments should be usable, but God of War Ragnarok has usable environments. You can use them kind of a lot actually in combat. It's pretty cool, you should try it out, you should play the game. However, this argument isn't just brought up in things that games don't have. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has yellow paint that helps you know where to go. Final Fantasy XVI does not have this. However, when you get close to a place you can go, a button prompt pops up, or you'll get some floating arrows that show you can use that thing. Yellow paint in Final Fantasy is something that video games have been doing for decades to assist the players in knowing where to go. This can be utilized in several different ways. In Silent Hill, items in the overworld are often colored in a way that makes them pop out from the background. Sometimes they will also blink a yellow glow. In Silent Hill Downpour, they decided to mute the colors of the game and of the items in the overworld, making items much easier to miss as you're trying to look for them or walking by them. Now let's apply this logic to Rebirth. You could make the argument that they could have gone the Uncharted 4 route with their climbing segments. But then you would have to tell me that you did not get lost when climbing the cliffs in Uncharted 4, and I would call you a liar. I haven't played Rebirth, but the climbing segments don't look that complicated. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't complicated climbing segments in the game. And I don't know about you, but I have never met a real-life person that cares about yellow paint. I have, however, met many real-life people who hate frustrating segments of gameplay. While yes, Final Fantasy XVI probably handles the way that it shows you where to go better, yellow paint just isn't that big of a deal. Death Stranding has a piss mechanic. It is more than likely that the piss mechanic in Death Stranding, much like the fart mechanic in Fable, was probably only added into the game because one of the developers thought it would either be a fun or funny gimmick to put in. However, I can delude myself into believing that the Death Stranding piss mechanic is a statement. Peeing in Death Stranding has a function. If you take the pee mechanic away, it doesn't really take much away. You have plenty of weapons to handle dealing with BTs all by yourself that aren't your pee or your poop, and cryptobiotes are pretty plentiful throughout the world, and I believe they recharge when you go into your safe room. In this way, Death Stranding's piss mechanic is something that is fun as a gimmick, but is not necessarily required for the game. You could play the entirety of Death Stranding without peeing a single time, and you would lose nothing of substance from the game. It's almost as though the game is trying to tell us that sometimes the small details are not important. I've seen it said that using how fun a video game is as a meter for if a video game is good is childish. To that I'd like to say, what are you talking about? Fun is like the usual cause of enjoyment. Why would you not play a video game if you didn't enjoy it? That doesn't make any sense. You have to enjoy it to some degree, which, statistically speaking, means you're most likely having fun with the game. If you don't play video games to have fun, what are you doing? I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you let something as small as yellow paint or an easily ignorable optional pronoun option in a gigantic AAA open world RPG ruin your gaming experience, then maybe you don't like video games as much as you've tricked yourself into thinking you do. You'd probably have a lot more fun going outside and like watching other people do things. That is it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for 100 subscribers. I didn't actually think anyone would watch these. If you'd like to see more of my ramblings about video games, nonsensical or not, you can check the channel out. And if you'd like to see written things about video games that are a little more cohesive and actually scripted, you can check out the website. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you found something to enjoy about this video, and until next time, as always, drink your water.